volunteering to go places. Yes, ma'am.
Should a person have a family and they're going to be deployed, say, or just sent somewhere in the United States, do they take into account the family and the location might have sent them, or are they just included?
No, absolutely. That's a very good point. Sometimes you have family members that have medical needs, and they can only be stationed at certain places. The military has something that's called an Exceptional Family Program, Exceptional Family Member, EFM. And what that is, I have an exceptional family member. My middle son was born with liver disease. And so what that means is that whenever it's time for me to do orders, I filled out some forms, a bunch of paperwork, took it to a specialist, they filled out forms, put me in the system, and whenever it's time for me to negotiate orders, I call my detailer, which is the person that you call when it's time to pick assignments, and they look into the system, pull up all the nurses in the different places, pull my history up, and then I'm like, okay, I have an EFM family member. There's different categories for the family member depending on how severe their category is. With my son's condition, I can only be stationed in the United States. I had orders to Japan once, was excited to go, and then I found out because of his disease I was disqualified and I had to get other orders. But because of your family's needs, in that case, medical needs, you can have a family member with Down syndrome or whatever special needs, and they have to take that in consideration when they're doing orders. Now, some people have 2 military members that are married, and that's a spouse co-location, and then they will talk to your detailer and your spouse's detailer and try to station you guys together as best they can. There are some times when it can't be done. If I only dig ditches in the western end of the world and my husband, you know, shoots cannons on the southern end of the world, well, we got 2 crazy jobs and that's hard to do. But for the most part, people can kind of line up and they can kind of get together, and that's what the military tries to do. But again, it's based on the needs of the Navy and your situation and what it is. Is it because my husband just doesn't want to move, he really likes California? Or is it because there's a medical situation going on and he needs to stay here? I was due to rotate, had a family thing to happen, and they extended me for a year. And then because of the situation, they reassigned me to another place. So there are situations and times that they'll do that. But basically, when you call your detailer, they'll tell you what choices are available based on you, where you've been already, what's good for your career, and then what's available. You can't go to the next place that somebody else is in if they haven't left yet and you're going to be their replacement. So sometimes there's plenty of spots there, and sometimes you're trying to get a leadership position and you need a leader that's there to be gone for you to show up or be getting ready to roll out. And it might be sometimes a year difference. I'm due to leave in 2011 and you want to come in 2009. Well, I'm not leaving yet. So you might need to look somewhere else. And that's kind of how jobs are found and billets are looked at. That makes sense? Okay. Okay, and that's what the HSCP program is. Other program we have is the 1925I dental student program. This program is not a tuition program at all. It's not to pay tuition. It's just basically to give a dental student a job once they graduate from school. The person can sign on at any place while they're in school. So at any time prior to graduating from dental school, you can sign up to the Navy for this program. And but the time that you do sign on, all of that time counts towards seniority for when you're actually commissioned. But let's say, for instance, you sign on at the beginning, and then 4 years later you decide you don't want to be in the program. It's no obligation until it's time to graduate and actually commit. So that's when the actual committing time happens. So you can decide to change your mind and don't do anything. Or let's say you signed on at the beginning, and now 4 years later you're getting ready to graduate, and you've gone ahead and you signed the contract and you've committed to the program. Well, because you've done the whole 4 years in the program, you get 4 years seniority, and that counts as as active duty time in the program.
So there's really no reason that you shouldn't sign that your first year if you were to do that then, okay? No commitment at all.
No, I mean, unless you wanted to do an HPSP or one of the other programs, it would be silly not to.
Yeah.
Because worst case scenario, you decide not to, but if you didn't, and then you may want to, you've got seniority time. So you have 4 options with this program at graduation. You can take a $75,000 sign-on bonus and have a job. And with this $75,000 sign-on bonus, there's a 4-year obligation to serve for 4 years. If you don't take a bonus, but you go ahead and sign up, there's a 3-year obligation. You can do a loan repayment program and just get your school stuff paid off and do the commitment for that based on how much of the loan repayment program you take. Or you can not commission at all and just walk away. And then there's the financial aid program, financial assistance program. And this program is a $45,000 annual grant, a monthly stipend, and if you're doing a residency, a civilian residency, you can keep any pay associated with that residency program. So this is for somebody who may already be out there in a residency program and then decide to sign on and get financial assistance after the fact. I'm already doing something in the civilian community, but now I want to join the military. You're able to stay and keep that, what you're doing, keep your program going, keep getting paid, but you get a $45,000 sign-on bonus plus the monthly stipend. And it doesn't affect the pay that you're already earning from your civilian program. The first year, you owe 2 years for that, and then a year for year after that for every year that you take the stipend. That makes sense? So if you only took the stipend for 2 years, you would owe for 3, because the first year is worth 2 years. That is the only thing that I have. The other one is a nurse program. Do we have any other programs that I didn't cover that somebody was interested in?
Did you say physical therapy?
No, I did not. But the program is physical therapists can do HPSP or HSCP as well. You can apply for that program as well.
So when do you go to the ODS, like for PA school? Do you go after you graduate from PA school? Or
Yes, ma'am.
You go after? Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
How would you go about gaining priority in like where you can like be deployed to? You're talking about different families.
Be deployed to or be assigned?
Be assigned.
Okay. What happens basically in the very beginning, because you're just coming in, and these are student programs. So in the beginning, during the student programs, they wouldn't too much worry about assignments. But towards the end, they ask you choices, your first, second, and third choice. And you would get one of those choices. And that's pretty much the way it works. This is my first. I'd love to go to Jacksonville first, and then I'd like to maybe go to Bethesda, then I'd maybe like to go to Balboa, and then they'll try to give you one of your 3 choices. If something happens where those choices are not available, then they'll come back to you and try to negotiate something else. But it won't be a surprise where your orders show up, Africa, what the heck? And, you know, I mean, it'll be one of the choices that you picked. Because those are training hospitals, and that's where normally the new doctors go, to one of the training hospitals. As far as deployments are just deployments. Wherever they show up, when they show up, that's where the deployment is to, and then the command will try to find a body to fill it. And most of the time, they'll ask for volunteers, but if they don't get volunteers, then somebody will get voluntold, and it could very well be you. So that's kind of the way that works.
Does it change with rank promotion, or whether you take a more administrative route or a more medical on-hands route?
Yeah, what happens basically is everybody starts in the same boat in the beginning, and as you become more senior, you can do a leadership role. And when you do a leadership role, some of your responsibilities will back down. But unless you're trying to stop practicing and get your skills rusty, most of the doctors or department heads and over the residencies and stuff like that, most of those physicians still practice. And they're still active, but they're just running the program. Because just like in civilian hospitals, you may find out a particular doctor is in charge of something, they'll still have a practice. It may not be as busy a practice as before when they were younger and they were running their own practice, but they're still active and they still have responsibilities. They just cut them back when they get administrative leadership roles. So they're no longer required. The military has something that they call a full-time equivalent, and that just means somebody who's responsible for putting out X amount of work. This is how much productivity I'm required to have. When you take on leadership roles, then your productivity is not going to be as much as this person over here that doesn't have a leadership role, because now I'm in charge of all these doctors and I've got evaluations to do and I've got to counsel people and I've got to take all this time out with people, and so I'm not going to be expected to see 35 patients in a day. Maybe I'm only seeing 15 patients now, or whatever the number is they have, it'll be cut back big time.
Do they have specific hours set with like limitations on how much you can work as a doctor or as an administrative role, or doing a combination of the two?
As a resident, you're going to work like a dog, whether you're in civilian or in a military practice. You're going to work like a Hebrew slave. You're either going to get paid $45,000 for it on the civilian or $70,000 for it, but you're going to work like a dog, just hands down. But afterwards, once you become a physician, the hours that you work depends on where you work. Whether you work in a clinic setting, whether you're working at a hospital or whatever. Most of the doctors are working at hospitals, but from time to time you can work at a clinic. And clinics are just like working at a doctor's office. They have clinic hours. And so your hours will depend on how well you chart and how fast you get done. The military has a charting system in the computer, and sometimes it gives us challenges because we got a bunch of people in the system, and every time somebody makes something new and improved and updated, that means that now it sucks even more. And so you get problems from time to time with systems and computers and equipment, but the hours differ depending on if you're working in a hospital, if you're in the ER working, if you're working on the labor deck, or if you're working in a clinic that has X hours and then the clinic shuts down and go home. But even if a clinic is in a hospital and they have set hours, then you're going to have some rotations on the floor in the ward because you're admitting patients. And so it'll be to the equivalent of the civilian counterpart.
Okay. I got a question about the collegiate program. Say you do 4 years medical school and do, say, a 5-year residency. Are you eligible for promotion during that time?
Absolutely. Well, let me take that back. You're still in the military, but you're in a training status.
Mm-hmm.
So the military's, when you finish all of your stuff, you're a lieutenant. Mm-hmm. Because you finished as a medical doctor.
Okay, then you'll have 9 years of...
Yeah, but medical school is school.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to receive your lieutenant until after you finish school.
Okay.
But you get graded and you get commissioned. You get commissioned after medical school. So you're going to become a lieutenant after medical school. When you start your residency program, you're going to be active duty, interacting with other active duty people on the floor, being seen, being evaluated. So that time is graded time. It is time that you're receiving evaluations and that you are being graded. But how fast you rise up and how fast you get promoted out of that time, I'm not exactly sure. But you are eligible for anything else that anybody else in the military is eligible for.
So your years spent in residency
does not count for payback.
But doesn't count for your retirement.
No, it does not count. It's not payback time, but it is graded time. It's time that they're looking at you, they're grading you, they're doing evaluations and fitness reports on you. Mm-hmm. So they are grading you, and that time, because when we get promoted, remember I said when we get promoted to 04, 05, and those things, those are not the first ones that you just don't have to kill anybody to get promoted. Those are the ones that is going to be based on your performance, your job performance, how you carry yourself, how you interact, how you do what you do. So even in the residency time, even though you're not doing payback time, you are being evaluated and graded because you're in the military, you're interacting, you're seeing patients, you're still learning things, but you're interacting with the senior people that are over you, that are running, the department heads that are running the program, and you're getting evaluations for that. So those things are going to be adding up so that when it's time for you to go before a board to be eligible for promotion,